Okay, we are live. Thank you everyone for joining. Chetan here at micebook. Welcome to the talks today where we're talking to agencies about virtual. We are recording this. This is going into the forum. So if you have got questions, as always, chat box, please pop them into there and I'll try and bring them in and bring them to the speakers. Sharing best practice as always, honest and open, so we can recover faster and stronger. A few quick things on micebook. We have launched our virtual sectors on micebook, so virtual studios, virtual experiences, virtual agencies, and virtual platforms, which you can advance search on all of those categories. So if you're looking for an agency that specializes in the pharma sector that has experience in virtual, or you're looking for a platform that does networking, you can search all of these different criteria. If you're looking for experiences and you're looking for cooking ones or fitness ones, that's where you can go on micebook.com. And if you have suppliers that are really good, please do add them. You can make notes on them just in your, and they're only seen by the rest of your organization. So that's all gone live, as well as our V Awards, more information coming out soon, celebrating the incredible work these agencies have done in this really incredible year. But there has been some amazing work, and I hope to release some information soon about categories and judging and all the rest of it. Next week's talks, we're going to do horror stories on virtual. Yeah, I think it's going to be really interesting. I've talked to a few people that have just absolutely, I don't know how, I mean, it just sounds horrific for them and their teams when it's bombed. It's just gone so badly wrong. And hopefully they're going to be brave enough to share, maybe definitely not drop names, but just that experience. I can't imagine. I guess it's just like a live event going belly up or the power going or something. So that's next Wednesday's talk. And finally, 2nd of December is our larger micebook Talks to Industry Voices about incentive and luxury and the future of. So that's 2nd of December, all details on our talks page. Right, let's get into it. Delighted to have 3 fantastic CEOs and MDs of agencies to share their insights into virtual and hybrid. I'm going to go to Dina first. Intro, please. Tell us about you, your company, and let's ask you another question. Do you see in 2021 the makeup of virtual being more than 50% of your business?
I'm Dina Green. I'm the Managing Director of Orange Door. Thank you very much for having me. We are a brand experience agency. We do events. We have been for the past 20 years. And I think that I've mentioned before on forums and things like that is that, and as we all know, the hybrid and virtual world is not brand new. We have been doing it for the past sort of 12, 14 years. It's just that clients weren't really picking up on it that much. It was a bit of an add-on. It was to amplify reach. But obviously with COVID, it has brought it to center stage. So very quickly, we were doing it a little bit before. I think the first one we did was like 12 years ago. Certainly the first one that I did personally in another life was about 12 years ago. But obviously when COVID came, we did all of the tears. We threw ourselves on the floor, me and my CEO, Elizabeth, and we cried about it. We thought, oh shit, what's going on? But we quickly picked ourselves up and we suddenly looked at the skill set that we had in house and went, right, well, people still need to communicate. In fact, people still need to communicate more than ever now because they're not bumping into each other and having those serendipitous kind of encounters. So therefore we need to manage it and structure it for people to be able to meet. Very lucky to have an in-house sort of technical team that can talk technical things that I really still don't understand, but I can sell it to a client, which is the main thing. But I do rely on the team to actually do all of the technical side of things. But luckily we had some team members in-house, fully employed, that could take this and lead this and move this forward. So we have been exceptionally lucky, or as I like to say, we have made our own luck, and we have been able to grow our business a little, certainly in this area over this time. So yeah, so really excited to be here. Do we think that percentage of my is going to be virtual in 2021, did you say? Yeah, definitely. I don't think that we are going to be getting back to the good old days in the way that we used to at all. I think there'll always be a hybrid and virtual element. But also I don't think that we're going to be getting really, I mean, the clients that I've been speaking to are not prepared to get back together in large numbers until earliest June time. That isn't just, even with the vaccine coming along, etc. There's going to be a sense of nobody wants to be the one. Nobody wants to be that one brand that has COVID spread at their event. So their appetite for risk, probably quite rightly on that one, because it would be terrible PR, would, you know, they're going to be making sure that, you know, most of the population is vaccinated. And then that comes down to, are we going to be vaccinated? You know, I'm hoping, you know, I hope my mother-in-law will be vaccinated very, very soon, but I'm pretty sure that I'm going to be at the bottom of the list of that, as will lots of other people that will be traveling to events. So definitely, if not more than 50%.
Yeah, thank you, Dina. Dale, intro, please.
So Dale Parmenter, CEO of DRPG. We're a full service agency. Been going for 40 years. My background actually is in broadcast. That's where I started when my first job was in a production unit, and I did quite some time at the BBC, working on things like, dare I say it, the original series of All Creatures Great and Small, back in the late 70s, and things like Pebble Mill at 1, if anybody remembers that. I probably don't. We've got a big video production team, big digital team. When it all happened back in March, it was relatively simple for us to do the switch. We've got the studios here, and you know, like Dina, we've been doing it for many years, probably 25 years. We've been doing virtual, and it all came about actually with one of the first petrol strikes, that we couldn't get delegates to an event. So we did a hybrid event using some very basic technology at the time, video conference units and ISDN lines, because there was no internet then. And every year, yeah, we'd probably do, I don't know, 5 or 6 virtual events a year, and that's now massively grown. I'd never have thought this. We've done over 450, over 1 million viewers so far, and we're now out of 11 studios, one of which being an outside broadcast fan that goes around. So yeah, really interesting time. I used to love studios. My dream was to have a complex full of studios. Now I've got that. Be careful what you wish for, because I'm not sure I like it anymore.
Thank you, Dale. Steve.
Thanks, Chair. Steve Quah, CEO of Arima Communications PLC. But the brands, you probably know the agency that I run, are Cheerful 21st and Eventful. Cheerful 21st being a brand experience and comms agency, full service, and Eventful being incentive and venue hire. Much like the guys, Dina and Dale saying, we've been doing virtual and hybrid and some sort of guys for many years. It's been part of the comms mix going forward. It used to be called two-way broadcasting and, you know, multi-linking. So it was a relatively smooth switch to kind of just polish off some of those creds and kind of step up for the challenges that were set by our clients in March. Like the guys here, we've successfully and more than I expected, to be honest, engaged with all our clients and taken them on a journey with us, and are doing lots and lots and lots of virtual. The skill set we had in house and comms and strategy first puts you in good stead. It's just a different channel now, so in some ways it doesn't matter as much. If you're just pure play production, it probably would matter. And we had a big video team and a big video department that is obviously really busy. And yeah, like the guys, I think we've got 50 events booked in November, you know, and as a churn rate compared to live, that's a huge amount of projects to manage. And to answer your specific question, absolutely more than 50% next year. For a couple of reasons. What we're seeing is actually more campaign-led and much more joined-up communications. So if you start off with virtual, we're planning kind of comms plans that actually end in November next year anyway, irrespective of live coming back or not coming back. And that's definitely a shift we're seeing generally with a lot of clients. And the word going backwards or going back to the old way, that's just kind of out the window now. It's kind of moving on to what's new, what's effective, and what do the clients need. And that's where we're thriving as an agency going forward. If that helps.
An interesting point we've had on that with clients, where we're now starting to plan the second virtual event in an annual event. And we've had some feedback from a couple of CEOs of saying, while it was brilliant, I don't want to do it again. But I'm happy to maybe go hybrid, where we've got multiple sites. Yeah, but it's interesting that some of the CEOs who are passionate about live events, passionate about their comms, internal comms particularly, said, yeah, once is enough. Yeah, it's interesting.
Yeah, I can understand that. I think it's quite interesting when you're brainstorming and trying to be really creative, how much more is a challenge to be that creative and engaging with your audience online as to a live experience. And that may be sort of muscle memory in a certain extent with some of our team. But where we are getting a lot of cut through is actually just results and sales conversations. Yeah. And therefore an event's gone to 2,000 people instead of 300 people. And they've actually got better results. And we can't fight that. And ultimately we've got live people like everyone here. And to your point, Dale, I think hybrid will come back, but to be honest, we also need to define what hybrid means. Because to me, doing a studio event is a hybrid event. I think, hybrid, with more audience, then that's a different conversation altogether.
Yeah.
And also, I'm just going to add on that note, the other great thing that we've found the clients are really loving is that, of course, we can get great data and great stats from a live event. But you can really get some very precise data and precise stats about some specific individuals when you're doing the virtual. And so when you're looking at the sales cycle and you'll see exactly what they're thinking about, and you marry that up with other data tools that you can do, lots of free ones out there as well. When you marry these two together with the actual facts that you're getting from the virtual, you're being able to produce real return on investment and real information and data to the clients that they didn't really have as precisely as before. I don't want to poo-poo. Of course, there are great ways of at live events to get great data, but this is like how long they're actually staying in a room, how they engage, how long they engage for, what they engage in, etc. And it's a lot more. There's a lot more precision around it, which I think that marketing directors are enjoying.
Absolutely, I echo that, Dina. And I think what's interesting is the stats that are growing above and beyond the actual live event itself, and the conversation pieces around that. And there's a whole world about pre-records, on-demand stuff as well, just kind of growing out the comms mix in our platform as well.
Yeah, I think the extension of the audience is really attractive to a lot of organisations, where, as you say, going from 300 to 2,000 now. But we're still getting pushback from people saying, yeah, but you can't beat the I was there, I was in the room when we launched that new product, when I saw that speaker, whatever it is. And I think that's where live events will always win.
And I have to agree with that. We did.
That is the holy grail. Those intimate conversations, that ambient dropping in, and we're all trying to recreate that online. And I do think it's improving. But there's live and there's live, isn't there? So you can't.
Yeah. And I think if you looked at the way television works, if it was so successful in terms of engaging an audience, why would anybody pay to go and see football or pay to go and see F1 or the Olympics or whatever it is? It's that emotional shared experience of being in the same space as other people. And actually, your experience might not be as good from a visual point of view. But it was that emotional sharing of an experience.
No, thank God. That's why theatre is still here from the Greek times,
Exactly. Yeah.
Absolutely.
I actually love the fact that I don't need to say anything. This is brilliant. This is keep going. But
we'll keep going. Yeah.
No, I will try and no, but this is brilliant. Thank you so much already for just great honesty, and but some amazing points already raised. And Dina, whilst I agree, I can see why stats, and there is a lot of precise, as you called it, data. I wonder how much it lives in your heart and your mind as to the point about live events. So yes, they engaged or they watched, but you know, depending on the type of event, you know, and it's probably more of a statement that live will stay in your heart and your mind a lot longer, probably. So for the right things, it's probably virtual is amazing and probably can excel the messaging. But yeah, what do you guys think of in terms of the impact of live and compared to, can you recreate it really on virtual?
I don't think anything ever beats that, especially that moment where you bump into somebody in the bar after a session and you're having a glass of wine. I mean, I've had some of my best new business pickups there, you know, at that time. Met some of the people that have become great long-time acquaintances and friends. And I think that there are some amazing engagement tools that you can use on your virtual events, but we are human. And we, you know, being human means being with people, and being able to feel that sense of togetherness. And my God, I'm sounding like I'm being a little bit emotional here, but it's true. You know, the more that you can have an emotional impact on somebody, the longer the memory is going to last with them. And you know, that's one of the things that we've been trying to do with the virtual events. We have found, I mean, one of the questions you were asking before, Chet, was the fact that, you know, what have we changed from what we were doing back in the spring to now? One of the things that we found has been really effective with clients is bringing that live element into it, and that physical element into it, and that shared physical element. So if you can send a group of people the same thing that they open together and they share together, that seems to last. We get great feedback on that kind of thing. And it's not just it being a gift, you know, like you get your pens at an exhibition or whatever it might be. It's actually something that you make and you do and you build and you experience together. So even though it's virtual, we're still relying on that live bit and that physical bit. It's just that we're having to send it to people. So, you know, that's definitely been a change. And answers the question is, you know, it's that human side, and you can't really replace that kind of physical shared experience, for sure.
I mean, Dale, to your earlier point about the CEO that said, we did it once, it was amazing, but I don't want to do it again. Was that the reason why? Or was there other things?
I mean, for him, I mean, we've got a few CEOs, as probably we all have, who are showmen, basically. They love to be on the stage. They, you know, it's their event. I once said to a CEO of a huge organization, 170,000 employees, and I said, right, we can put a model in here to measure some of that. I'm not interested in any of that. I just know it was successful because I can stand on that stage and I can feel the warmth and the emotion from the room.
You love those clients, don't you, though?
I love those clients. That's easy. All I need to do is make him look good, and he's great, you know. So, and so, you know, we're not going to create that, because what the CEO is not getting, or the senior people, is any feedback there and then off the stage. They're not living and breathing that emotion and that shared experience. So that's another good sign for all of us that are in the events industry, because we're playing almost just people's egos a little bit in that way. And what he said to me, this particularly, said, well, okay, well, I'd go for hybrid, because in hybrid, of course, you've still got an audience. So you can have then regional hubs of maybe 100 people in each or 200 people in each. And I think that's probably the way it's going to start to go. And I think it was going to go anyway, you know, with the whole, you know, people racing off around the world on planes and getting 10,000 people into a convention centre. It's probably not going to be appropriate in the future. So I think hybrid, in that sense of creating hubs with live audiences in there, maybe the next way we go.
Thank you, Dale. Steve, coming back to you, I sort of guesstimated, I guess, that people do want to go back to live. Of course, the event planners, because it's their jobs, it's why they're in their jobs, they want to go back to live as soon as possible, as long as it's safe. I think the CEOs, from what I've heard and from what Dale's just said, they also want to go back to live. And Dina said earlier on about, you know, you don't want to be that event, which is a super spreader event. So is it the middle tier, the procurement, the finance, is it that level that is probably putting the brakes on more rather than at the CEO level? What's your take on it?
What, on from doing live or virtual? Yeah, I think there's a couple of things that come to mind. First of all, I think I'm a live person like everyone here. You know, when the hairs in the back of your neck stand up in emotion and people cry and cheer, long may that continue. But I think it's going to be more selective, coming out of this, as in why you're going to put an event on and what the purpose is. You know, if it's a sales event and it's a trade fair, or it's a kind of expo type thing, I don't think you can recreate that online. Because if you do that actually research, where they've taken like Lions example, they had like 50,000 delegates turn up, you talk to the exhibitors, they made 0 sales conversions. That's a bit extreme. So it doesn't work in that world. And taking that kind of whole expo experience virtually is a challenge. You know, gamification stuff to get that. But going back to our learning experience or a shared, you know, shared feeling of culture and values and entertainment, of course that's live. But to your question, it's actually driven by health policy at the moment, because like we've got some studio work that's been cancelled, despite the fact we can work in the studio, because you know they can't send their delegates out. But I think fundamentally it will come out again of the results, because you know we're going to enjoy this period of actually measurement and actually some ROI stats that actually stand up to scrutiny. The CFO more, I think, or the CMO is going to go, okay, we did X amount of these events, it's generated these sales leads, we'll do more of this. And it won't be live at all. And it will be kind of an extension of, you know, virtual, on-demand, hybrid, or shifting into, you know, under the word marketing much more. And I think that's a challenge for everybody here, is that, you know, the advertising and marketing world has kind of been a little bit siloed in that world, but we're encroaching in that kind of land now. They're coming in our land. So guys, hang on to that audience skills, what we're about, audience engagement and telling stories and engaging staff. So whatever the mix is, but yeah, and I think, you know, just to add, you know, the word vaccines now in our vernacular a little bit more, that's just another consideration. I think there's a slightly more optimistic hope that we'll see live come back a bit earlier, thank God. So it's really still to be made up, I think, still to be formed. I think we're all learning the engagement piece around the networking, the coffee conversation. There'll be some little breakthrough and some clever technique that, you know, will actually resonate with some clients, and they will do more of that, and that'll get one step closer to that immersive experience. But like Dale says, a lot of shows we do are for people just to, you know, showboat and glad hand and just have a party. You know, and just to crystallize that up, you know, I think the ultimate challenge for all of us is like when we get a Christmas party brief online, which is one of your questions. So that's the ultimate social experiment online. It ain't going to work, guys. It ain't going to work, you know. So you can do entertainment and you're going to make it slightly business focused and actually got to make it slightly objective. But again, you know, long may they'll come back, big parties and entertainment and festivals. So yeah.
I think once we get beyond that, just pushing out a message on virtual, whether it's a virtual exhibition, virtual workshop, whatever it is, that Christmas party thing is so different. We've got 6 booked in at the moment. And heart of heart, I'm thinking, I wouldn't want to go to that party. Sit at home on my own with a bottle of wine and watching, you know, it's basically watching a TV show. That's what you're doing. You're recreating a Saturday night TV show. And you know, it's great and it'll be wonderful, but you won't beat that being in the room.
No.
I totally, Dale, I totally agree with that. However, at the moment, while people can't get to go together,
oh yeah, there's no choice. I mean, this is what we have to do.
It's a nice thing to do, and again, it's if they can have a shared experience together. I mean, I do it with my team. We've got a few Christmas parties booked in. We've also just we're doing our own Christmas party for our conference as well. You know, and again, it's that shared experience. At least you're going to be able to have that, you know, moment to laugh at your CEO, laugh at, you know, just to have a laugh with them in some way or other. But I agree with you. I mean, I am the biggest party advocate you'll meet. I love my parties. And that's actually how I got into events in the first place, was organizing parties. It suddenly got a little bit more serious than that. But you know, you can't beat that. But while we can't do it, I think that we need to look at, and I saw, hello Sue, by the way, hello Sue Gold. I saw that she's put a comment on here, is that we have to remember the end game is that we need to return to real live events. You know, I get that, we absolutely do. However, for now, hi Sue, I was just seeing your picture come up. But for now, you know, we have to do what we have to do with what we've got and what we can do, and that's be making the virtual as best as we possibly can,
absolutely,
as we can.
Yeah.
Okay, let's sorry, go on, Dale. Finish off.
No, sorry. I'd say, but I think that's when we have to switch into. I know I banged on about broadcast. We have to become that TV show. I was writing the script to the outline script for our Christmas party, and I ended up, when I looked down, I thought, I've got 50 people in the studio. I don't think I can do this. So yeah, yeah.
Okay, well, let's go on. I just want to touch on some quick lessons then that you've learned in this time. And I know that you've all been doing, to some shape or form, you've been doing it longer than most, actually, probably. In terms of what you're saying to your speakers and people that are on screen, what is the kind of messaging around what they deliver, how long they deliver it for, what's the optimal times, backgrounds? What have you learned in this period that is working and is good, and what is the don't do, the don't do's now? What advice could you give to people coaching speakers and content?
There's a whole manual.
Have you got it? Can you send it?
6 months old, yeah. I think there's a certain amount of common sense involved as well, to be honest. I think one of the questions you're going to ask us earlier is kind of what were the challenges for a lot of clients, and I think there's one underestimating how complex and how much time you need to invest in a proper show online. Let's call it a show, an event online. And I think some of the challenges were not given enough time, became very platform focused. And I want to talk about that. There's a whole platform features and functions briefing process, right, which has nothing to do with what we do really. And three things. There's strategy. What are you saying? Why are you saying it? The content piece and production value. And I think Dale and Gina will actually get this. Production value it's more complicated to do a content piece to camera professionally, engagingly, than it is in a live experience space. And that was a bit of an education process. So if you hive out a normal live conference and you hive out your on stage bit, and you put the cost allocation to that, it's a lot less than doing a live piece, because content, you can't have enough content. And if you want to do an opening 15 minutes, have 20, 30 pieces of content, videos, things, all broadcasting, treat it like a show. They will absolutely get this. There is a lot of science around actually learning periods, as in, it takes, I think traditionally in a live event, you say something 2.5 times, you remember it. In a virtual thing, you've got to say it 6.5 times. Now, it's not 6.5 times in the conference. It might be the pre-engagement piece. It might be the story you say. It might be the opening bit. It might be the gamification bit. It might be the closing bit. So again, that's a skill set. That is more value for us as an agency. That's more consultation. And then duration, 26 minutes normally live, 60 minutes. Some say, I say it's shorter. I think it's 10, 12 minutes before you drift off. That drift, I'm looking at my Google Outlook now. Anyway, but there is these skill sets. And I think for all the agencies here, it was a relatively, for all my production team, they're producers and project managers. Just so happens we're just going to sharpen some of our skills. And then there's also quite a lot of backstage stuff that has to be done. You can't undercrew. Don't undercrew. When they go, why have we got a show caller, the floor manager, and a director, and a camera, well, because it's live, and 1 second virtually is 1 hour to us mucking up. So that's probably been an education process for clients, generally speaking, and also as a trend, the budgets are being reflective of that today. I think ridiculous budgets are set at the beginning. A 6-figure budget we normally do, we want to do it for a low double-figure number. They've gone, okay, now we actually need to spend more money on content and video, and actually get that right, and then also expand the audience, get more engagement, get more value out of it, measure it, fine-tune it, measure it, and kind of just to round that off, what we're also discovering is we're getting much more involved in brands. Once we get into a virtual event, it spreads out much quicker to do more events for people who never talked to before. I don't know if you guys are discovering that. Because, you did that one for the boss. Oh, can you do that for our division? Do that for our division. And it's a relatively fluid booking process. There's no venue involved. You've done it right. It's been approved. Didn't fall over. They loved it. Oh, can we have some more of that? So that's another sort of success point.
We've certainly seen that with clients where we may do, maybe they're a one event client a year, and now all of a sudden we've done 10 virtual events because they said, well, this division wants it, that division wants it, etc. But what we've seen, it's been quite amusing. Presenters will walk in in that live event mode in their head. I've got my script, I want my lectern, I've got my slides, and you say, no, let's just sit down and talk about this. For a start off, there's no audience, and they're really, some people who are very competent on a live stage now just fall apart when they're in the studio, because, you know, all there is a couple of crew and, you know, floor manager and some cameras, and you've got to then start to train them. We're talking, going back to that media training, really, love the camera. And with some people have got it and have really enjoyed it and can imagine that audience behind the camera. Others really struggle with it, and it's almost becomes a bit of a comedy program if you're not careful, because they're doing all the whole, you know, moves, the Alan Partridge stuff. So in some cases say, okay, let's just do this a different way. We'll do it as an interview. We'll do it on the sofa. We'll have a professional presenter and their host. Then they can be put at ease. So you're having a chat. One thing we did right in the early days, which worked really well, was when we were doing the sofa chats and we were bringing lots of people in on Zoom or Teams, is to put life-size or screens in the sofa. We had a sofa built that could take 42-inch monitors up on their side, so portrait. And so whoever sat on the sofa now is talking to a life-size person. And it looked great, and actually I did a few, and you were thinking those people were in the room. So trying to create that live environment, so to help the presenters who just found it completely alien at times. And when you say, well, no, you're not going to get a lectern, I'm sorry, because this is a TV show. This is not a conference anymore.
That's a good point.
Oh, sorry. I was just going to say on that note, with the presenters, there's an awful lot more. They're used to walking onto a stage, as Dale was saying, but there's an awful lot more about it. You know, you need to look at what your background is. You need to make sure that there's not going to be things moving around in the background. You need to look at, you know, what the quality is, and if it's not great quality, what can you do to help them with that? And we've had to send out a lot of equipment to people in, you know, at their home office, you know, etc. And what they wear. I know that you have to do that for a live show on stage as well, but it's just a whole different concept with it. You know, the team spend a lot of time in rehearsals, reevaluating the lighting, and you can do that much easier in a studio. And again, I agree with you, Stephen, that that's more of a hybrid, because you've got people physically, you know, when you're actually doing a pure virtual event where you're using somebody's home office equipment, there's an awful lot of work that goes around with what the lighting is like, what the background is like, what the sound is like, when you don't have the professional equipment to do it, which then brings on to the amount of clients that think it's going to be cheaper to do a virtual event, and how infuriating that is. Because they're spending, as as Stephen said a moment ago, you know, they're spending, I don't know, 300 grand on an event that they usually do, and now all of a sudden they think that they can do it for 50. And they can't. And that's one of the things. So we've now got into the habit with our clients, when they come through with these kind of little you know it, when they say things like we do need to be very careful about the money, or, you know, they're specifically bringing that up. We now, rather than putting a full creative and strategic proposal together, we're putting together a budget of, this is the basics before you get any bells and whistles. If you're not going to give us a budget, this is what you're looking at before because we've done that, we've been burnt. You know, you can spend, you know, a good week.
I mean, to be fair to clients, though, is that they also, I think it was quite hard for them to buy the service in the early days, and also how to scope out and put a budget together. And I think innocently they thought that's what they could get. So I think part of the kind of learning with our clients is guiding through and just showing what the value is. And also they have gone off to what I would call just pure platform providers and come back with a shocking experience back to an agency and going, okay, now we actually understand what production value, rehearsals, and the fact that you're going to storyboard my content means. So, you know, thank God for that, as it gives us faith in what we do.
And to be fair, on the platform providers, they were inundated.
Those service levels.
Keep up with the demand. They could not service anybody everybody. It was, they were like, what do we do? They were really in a bad place with that. So that's definitely, and yes, sorry to all clients out there that came and thinking it was going to be cheaper, but we were all just learning that together, really,
Yeah,
Do you think this has paved, there's a question by Paul asking about budgets, and if we are, if the next phase is moving to hubs and rather than one large event, several hubs with production, with being hybrid and amplifying, the costs are obviously going to go up. So do you think this learning curve has paved the way that people do appreciate, A, you've got to put more into the production, but B, to do the hubs, etc., the budgets do need to go up? Or do you think they'll just do less events with the same amount of budget, or how do you see the budget piece being addressed?
Client that rather than us. What do the clients say?
Well, what have you seen?
But also, what do you mean by the budget? You including flying 1,000 people first class around the world and 3 nights in a hotel? Then ultimately, net wise, will be a lot better value as a solution. So again, that's another complication to the whole mix going forward.
But I don't think there's going to be massive savings along the way. And I think, some conversations we had with procurement are looking at this as an opportunity to cut costs. And we're saying, well, now actually, you need to probably allow more budget for some of these events because of those production values you need to put in place. Yes, you could just use Zoom or Teams or whatever, but you're not going to get the return that you require on that budget.
Yeah, and I think one of the biggest challenges will be about hybrid, about whose audience is leading the solution, because ultimately, if you do a real world example, 3-day event, we're normally doing about 6 hours now, or 1-day event, we're trying to do an hour and 2 hours at max. Yeah, but that's for the virtual on-screen audience. But if you have an audience participation, you don't want to be like clapping like in a studio watching, TV show. So therefore, what leads? So therefore, the hybrid with an audience factor, I think, then makes much more sense. But it needs to be geographically located, because you need 100 people here, 100 people here, 100 people here. Then it becomes a shared experience and a longer time, and you get more engagement pieces. So that's interesting. That's exciting to us.
And we've done quite a lot of those, and in the past, and I love those because you have got that shared experience. 100, 200, 300 people in different rooms, and they can go off and say, okay, we're going to now cut the feed and you're all going to go and do your own thing, and then we're going to come back and get some feedback where, let's go to Moscow, let's go to New York, let's go to this. We've done all sorts of different wacky things on the hybrid side, and I think that probably is going to be the next big thing. We're bringing people together. We don't have to fly people around the world. We can do more regional hubs. Time zones we've got to consider. We did a food tasting where we were across the globe, UK in the middle, and the poor people in Taiwan it was midnight and they were still tasting. And fair dues to them, they stayed online because they were loving it and part of the entertainment.
Hopefully no MSG, they won't go to sleep. Anyway.
So just coming quickly onto platforms, are you guys with your service offering, are you platform technology agnostic, or do you have your own platform, or do you decide what the client needs and then decide what you're doing?
Yeah,
Dina.
Yeah, we've just been shouting about the fact that, we spent the first part of March researching more and more and more platforms. We knew a couple already, but as I said, we weren't doing it massively before. And there's more that have come out, and there's more that have adapted because of the times. Well done them. So we actually, we just did a massive pitch for a client. And one of the questions at the end was, what platform are you doing this on? And we said, look, don't worry about the platform, worry about what you're trying to achieve and how we're going to engage people. We've got the ideas, we've got the concepts, we've got the strategy here, because we know that when we're awarded the piece of business, we will be working with the client, partnering with the client to be able to work out which bits they like, which bits they didn't like, because they never go precisely with exactly what you offered them in the pitch. And then once we've worked that out together, we can then work out what is the best platform for them. We just have to have good knowledge and keep on top of what are the best platforms out there.
That's quite interesting, because it's like a bit like a normal live event pitch, they always want to know what venue you're using or what because it's a big part of the experience, and it's interesting. So how was that feedback received by the client? Did they accept?
They accepted it completely.
Right.
I mean, luckily they've done some stuff with us before, so we are a trusted source for them. I think that makes us braver with going into a pitch scenario like that, for sure. But we did assure them, and we had done the due diligence, that whatever we were offering was possible to do in some way or other. We just needed to pick which direction that they wanted to go in, and that as I think one of the nice things about all of this is that because it was, although, you know, we're all saying we've been doing these events before and we've been doing hybrid and virtual and etc., it wasn't our main thing. Well, it wasn't our main thing. So I'm just being honest about the fact that when it comes to finding our way through this terrible year, you know, one of the things that it's actually made our clients really, really close to us. You know, obviously some were close, but it's actually with brand new clients, they've almost become closer more quickly, because we're kind of like learning it together, and people are having patience, and people are, it's that togetherness and that partnership that we are constantly selling to clients. You know, we are your partner, we're not your supplier, you know, all of that kind of stuff. Well, this really demonstrated that, and I think that in times of adversity, you know, that can actually, that's the positives that come out of it. So yeah, learning together has been a big positive for sure.
Steve,
platforms,
platforms?
Bloody platforms, platform, bloody platforms. Look, we're primarily like, we are technology agnostic, but we've had to take some of it in-house and curate our own platforms, primarily for service levels. To Dina's point, there's some great products that they couldn't cope with the demand. That's the first thing. I think the answer is that there's a whole mix. We're doing some very bespoke stuff that's kind of one-off stuff. And we're working with quite a lot of our clients have an approved platform for their corporation, so therefore we're not involved in the platform. But I think interestingly, we have a saying in the house, content is king, but software almost rules. We're never going to say rules, but it's really quite integral. So it is that blend of stuff. You can't ignore it. And sometimes I do compare it to like a client saying, well, you're almost asking in a live event world, what projector we're using, what's the desk we're using, and you know, you don't want to know that shit. It's like, what does it look like? Is it good? And I think that has settled down a bit, because to Dina's point, you know, in the early days it was like, well, can you do that? Can you vote? Can you do that? I mean, going, for what? So you know, and a lot of work went to those guys originally, and they couldn't cope with it because they're not set up for it. And it's come back to the creative agency. It's a creative idea ultimately still.
Is your one called
Kit?
Kit. Is that after Knight Rider?
No, for the younger people, they didn't realise that. No, Kit's part of our team. Kit's a personality, and you need your Kit, don't you? So anyway, that's why we call it Kit.
Sorry, Dale.
That's all right.
You're going to come in.
We're slightly different because we've had a platform for which we developed, a big digital team, a few years ago, and we've used for virtual and hybrid. So we were ready, up and running, and we've only used our own platform. And what we've had to do is develop it a lot faster in terms of some of the things that we thought, oh, that'd be nice to have that functionality. It's like, I want it by next week, functionality now. So and it's done us really well. Fortunately, we've had a lot of security around it. Some of the work we'd been doing in the past have been with some of the financial institutions. So it was already audited and secure and met all the you know, whatever it needs to meet. So yeah, we've stuck with our own platform, even though we could push out onto any other platform if we wanted to. But we've tried to bring everybody in and use ours because it's tried and tested.
And I think that Richard Waddington's comment about he said most of the big regulated businesses are contracted into a platform, procurement, security, etc. So what we have found, just on that note, is that during this time, procurement have been a lot more open to using different things, because marketing or whoever it is that we're dealing with have asked for this. And then we work for one of the biggest tech firms in the world. We do a lot of work with them, and we have absolutely integrated different platforms for different events for them, and they've let us do that. So I feel as though actually clients have been a lot more flexible than perhaps you would have imagined in the first place, as long as they've got the right security around them. But then we wouldn't be using those kind of platforms that didn't. So
absolutely. No, I think it's shifted from becoming business critical now. So a lot of that red tape that we find from IT and procurement have just disappeared overnight, which was great to see, quite refreshing.
And Dale, you've got, I think you said 11 studios now, which is pretty impressive around the country. And venues are gearing up and also refitting ballrooms, etc., because they know the work isn't, the live work isn't going to come back very quickly or in the scale that it was. What advice would you give to any venues and hotels to either temporarily kit up or gear up for the change, or more permanently? What experience have you had with live or with venues?
In the past, one of the biggest issues is always connectivity. What's the digital infrastructure within the venue? Because that is critical. You know, if you can't get the pipe to get to the outside world, then you're completely screwed. So that would be the first thing. The second thing would be actually the same as if we're teching something. You know, the fixing points, the power requirements, the access, all those things. Sound has become more important at a live event. We may get away with a bit of clattering from behind the scenes, but microphones will be incredibly sensitive. So is the room soundproof? What echo is in the room? Do we need to drape the room because to dampen down? You know, it's got big high ceiling. So all those things, if we're fitting out a studio, we now have to look at ballrooms and conference rooms and say, are they suitable? You know, daylight coming in, all that sort of stuff. So there's a list of stuff you need to go through just to see whether it meets a certain criteria.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you. In terms of just Steve, you've got a US office just now. I think it's recently opened. I don't know if you would know the answer to this question, but do you think the UK is at the forefront of all this virtual hybrid, or are we in the middle? Are all European countries being just as active as we are in terms of they've all got communication needs and so on? Or in the US, the same? I mean, any global viewpoint of how this is going?
Good question. I mean, I think the reason for opening the US office was a demand for our skills from the UK side. So that was a fundamental need with 2 or 3 particularly tech clients who we work with in Europe and wanted us to kind of go over to the US. Another reason is actually virtual is a bigger need to be 24/7 because you're running 24/7 events. And we, an example, it started in Singapore, went around the world. We had an office location, East Coast, West Coast, and everyone was manning it. So there's a practical point, even though virtually we think you don't need to be there. And I think America's huge, but I think American production standards are different from us. I won't say worse. I think they're different from us. And we find a lot of cut through, one with our service levels, one with our actual creativity and our skill set. And we've got certain products here that aren't actually launched in the US. Some of the platform products or some of our thinking, and we get a lot of cut through for that. But saying that, there's a lot of advanced stuff going on in the States that we just not privy to. I think they must and the bigger kind of expo stuff, and that's basically because the various platforms are kind of hooked into that, and that's their world. They have a whole world of stuff that doesn't involve production value and content. To me, it's just turning up and going to a seminar about toothpaste. I don't know, but so that's an interesting point. But I think it's always something we wanted to do. We just accelerated it in the time of trying to gain kind of more business. And America is just quite a fertile trial ground for British creativity, in my opinion. Anyway,
I absolutely agree with that. I think the British creativity, British production values will always win over. And we've picked up 3 US corporates or corporations to do their virtual events in the States, although running out of our studios in the UK. And apparently we won it not necessarily because we were technically more advanced, but because of the production values that we could offer them and some of the techniques we were proposing that, you know, this is more than just doing a Zoom meeting. This is now a full-on TV production. So yeah, we're controlling it from here, from the UK, which is brilliant.
Yeah, absolutely. And also, it's just to say our service levels, as in replying to an email in the same day type things, you know.
Yeah.
We surprise our American agencies say it's not in your statement. Hang on, let me get it. So there's stuff around that which is just, I think, generally was applicable. It's probably more focused now because, you know, deadlines are shorter. Service needs to be up. You need to be on your game more. You need to be more motivated. That just.
Are we losing?
Sorry, your pipe's not big enough, Steve.
Oh, sorry. Excuse me. Sorry, I'm finished.
Dean, I'm going to come to you just because we're nearly up for time. But when live and hybrid comes and live comes back next year, which we all know it will, how will you gear up the team? Do you think you'll recruit in a freelance way to start with, or do you think you'll be back to full-time recruitment? Any sort of thoughts or planning of how you gear back up to live for next year?
Absolutely, we've been planning for it, surprisingly enough. I'm a big believer that we are a project-based company. And therefore, you know, we don't work on retainers, etc. So I think that for us as a business, so that we can still stay agile and flexible and be able to move as quickly as possible, we will have a core team of individuals that will be the client facing, making sure that the client is happy, keeping up with those service levels, etc., answering to emails in the same day, and that will be their responsibility. But when it comes to the other parts, depending on what kind of work that, you know, we are doing in those events that we are doing, we will hire freelance talent in to be able to support us with that. I'm a big believer in that being the model, whether it was virtual or not. Because rather than using an amazing automotive executive producer for something that's actually in the pharmaceutical world, we would be able to bring in an executive producer that is excellent in the pharmaceutical world, because people do speak, different industries do speak different languages. So we are looking at what that core team is. We have restructured the business. I was going to do that anyway. I was a new MD in January. It's what we do. We go in and we do things differently. Yeah, we're going to keep that core team, and so it will be a mix of the two, because we will have to, as we grow more, I'm hoping that we'll keep all of our virtual and grow, you know, even more, and also grow more on the live face-to-face stroke hybrid. We'll have to employ more full-time staff, but there will be the freelancers coming back, which I'm sure will be music to a lot of people's ears.
Yeah, hopefully some hope for a devastated community. Dale, same question.
Yeah, pretty same answer really. A mixture of both. We've managed to retain everybody in the business, which is great. My fear is, which I suppose is a nice problem to have, we've redeployed pretty much everybody out of the live division into now this virtual division that's sort of created from nowhere. My fear is when it all starts to come back, we're going to have to now start to resource back into live. So we're going to have to use quite a big freelance base, I'm sure. But we have been recruiting all the way through. We haven't stopped recruiting, and we'll probably be net plus, I don't know, 10 people on the 350 we employ. We'll probably be 360 by the end of the year. So yeah,
impressive. That is really nice to hear as well, that you have kept everybody. So well done for that.
Yeah, and the team have been brilliant in wanting to learn and wanting to help, and you know, got people trying to be floor managers and you know, moving cameras and lights and all that sort of stuff. It's been brilliant that the team have worked tirelessly to retrain themselves into this new world.
Yeah. Well, echo Dina's comments. Well done, Steve. Last question to you. The same one.
Yeah. I mean, you know. Similar. I mean, you know, core account teams would have dedicated full-time staff as normal. We have a certain amount of core production in-house as normal, and like Dale, we managed to unfurlough. Everyone's back on. In fact, we're recruiting at the moment, so it's not so much next year, it's just a need now. Any agency mix, we'll flex and flow accordingly. Like Dino, we're project-based. We are going into more with long-term relationships because of virtual, because of the number of programs, which is great. And I think more to do that Dale's point, we've done a certain amount, a lot of retraining. I mean, if you've got bright, talented kids, they can just repurpose themselves quite quickly, but there's a certain amount of retraining, but there'll be more focus maybe on some of the deeper skills, which is either on the technical side or the platform side, particularly, but more around the comms piece and how that actually transfers to, if you like, a client brief. That's probably a bigger growing skill set we need to do some stuff for.
Brilliant. Well, we're nearly up to 4 o'clock. I feel really honoured to have such esteemed panelists join me today. Really appreciate. I can't believe how busy your lives must be. So really, all of us appreciate you taking the time out to come here today on the talks. Freelancers are on micebook for free, so please source them there, add them there. Hopefully we can get them working back into doing stuff live, virtual, the rest of it. Thank you, everyone. We've got virtual focus on the whole of November, as you hopefully know. So next week, we're going to do horror stories of virtual. If you have any case studies or would like to join the panel, please do let me know. 2nd of December, we're going to focus on incentive and luxury. Have a great week. Go Biden, as always.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you, everybody. Thank
Pleasure.
you.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Thanks, everyone.
Cheers.
Bye.